ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यभिमः योगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्मरन् व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततन्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै Verse 62 ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. So now the third important discipline to assimilate the Vedantic teaching. The person who is doing Shravana Mananam and wants to assimilate the knowledge, wants to enjoy the fruit of the knowledge, and well, definitely he has to assimilate the knowledge, which will give him a fruit of the knowledge. And so we need to have three disciplines we are talking there. And the first discipline we have talked about, that is regulation of senses. Now the second discipline, of course, Nididhyasanam also we have talked about. And the third discipline is now being talked here, that is regulation of thoughts, thought discipline, which is generally called in Sadhana Chatushtayam as a Shamaha, Manonigraha. So that has been described now in the two verses. First it is said here, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha. Pumsaha. Word actually is Puman. Nakaranta is that word. And this is the sixth case. So Pumsaha, for a person. What kind of a person? Dhyayataha. One who constantly dwells upon. On what? Vishayan. Well, so one who constantly dwells upon the sense objects. What will happen? Now all the steps, how this person, the person who, how he falls. Basically now in these two verses, a ladder is shown of a fall. This is not a ladder of rising ourselves. It's a ladder of fall. And so it has been talked here. So dhyayatah meaning who constantly dwells upon, vishayan, the sense objects. then the second step will be what? Sangaha jayate teshu vishayeshu. On all, towards all these sense objects, a fancy arises. Upajayate means arises. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Sangat, from the fancy, third step has been described now. So sangat sanjayate kamaha. So from this fancy, desire is born. Kamaha is a desire. Kamat krodha abhijayate, further step. Well, from that desire, this anger arises. So for a person who is constantly thinking of the sense objects, a fancy for those sense objects arises, and from the fancy desire is born, and from desire anger comes. This is how the steps are shown here. So from this verse onwards, Bhagavan is going to talk about this important discipline, that is thought discipline, which is of course a little more difficult, even compared to regulation of senses. So, or a sensory discipline, compared to that, this is difficult. Because, the senses are basically external, and they are on the gross body, of course. They are on the gross body, and gross body is basically a house, and various houses are there in which all the senses rest. I mean, they are there. But what happens is, mind is in a internal instrument, and so internal organ, and therefore that will always be with you. What you can, for sensory discipline, of course you can, suppose you don't want to see something, you can go away from the place. You don't want to hear something, you can go away from the place. If you don't want to go away from the place, there itself, if you don't want to see something, you can close the eyes. If you don't want to hear something, remaining in that place itself, you can put the plugs inside. And therefore you can definitely control the senses from the data which you don't want, from the sense organs which you don't want to hear, see, etc. Well, you can have a control. But the mind, which is an internal organ, so that you cannot do anything in that. You cannot plug the mind. And so mind can go anywhere at any time. Even in the middle of the class, it can go to the beach on the New Jersey and take a walk and come back. It can happen. So thought discipline is basically a very difficult thing, but it is very important when we want, because for us moksha is more important, and nothing is more important than this goal of life called moksha, or the freedom, and therefore we should be ready for any kind of a sacrifice. I mean, here sacrifice means basically I am ready to have that kind of a discipline. Well, let it take its own time, but I am ready for it. So this thought discipline is also extremely important, which we call shamaha. We have already discussed in sadhana chatushtayam. This is called mano nigraha also. Earlier we talked about sensory discipline, well, that we call it as a damaha, we call it as a indriya nigraha also. And to highlight the importance of thought discipline, Bhagavan says that, what will be the harm if you are going to allow the thoughts to move around as they want? Then what will happen? That's what the ladder of fall Bhagavan is now showing. So if you let if you let your mind loose, then definitely the big damage, very big damage is going to occur. So that Bhagavan wants to show, so that we can be ready for regulation of mind also, thought discipline. So when we interact with the world, basically, so many things enter, our mind through the sense organs. And even though we are practicing sensory discipline, still in spite of those disciplines, things enter to your mind. You may not be thinking about it, but just some neighbor calls you and gives some news, and you start thinking. Or you are going somewhere and you have decided that you will not allow your, you are observing, say, discipline at the level of, suppose, eyes. You don't want to see certain things. But when you are driving, sometimes the the posters, etc., advertisement posters, etc., which sometimes they are very indecent also, but your eye just falls on it. So it is, you cannot totally avoid that. That is what we want to convey. You cannot totally avoid the world entering into the mind. And so when you move away from the object must have gone, but away from the sight, etc. But the mind can dwell upon the object. So any object, anything, when we dwell upon, then we call it as a Vishaya Dhyanam. That is what here is said. Dhyayataha Vishayan. Means there is a Vishaya Dhyanam. So mind has a tendency, of course, to dwell upon one thing or the other in the world. And there is a rule also. See, they consider mind as basically it's like a negative, negative of our camera film. It's like that. So there are two types, there are two surfaces where our images are formed. One is like the mirror. In that also image occurs. But when the image occurs, that's all right. Once you go away, the image will not remain in that mirror. Because the surface of the mirror is of a such kind where which will not hold your image. But this negative of that camera, well, it has a certain kind of a chemical over it, by which when you expose yourself to that image, to that negative, a image is formed which is permanent. So after that, of course, you go away, but your image will remain all the time in that negative. That's how then they develop and give you a photograph. So basically our mind is also like a negative. It's not like a mirror, because it has a certain chemical that is called rasa. Rasa, we have seen that rasa. That is emotional value for the objects, varieties of the objects. It is there in the mind. So as through the sense organs, any object enters to the mind, then immediately the image is formed there. Certain time your mind works as like a mirror. Many objects enter to your mind, and as the objects go away, the image also goes away, like mirror. But some certain objects, when they enter, and then the mind works as a negative, and definitely because there is a emotional value for the object, so the image will be formed of that object in the mind, and so then let the object go away now, but now mind starts dwelling upon it. So that is how here it is. This is called Vishaya Dhyana. You don't meditate on all objects in the world. Many thousands and thousands of objects enter every day. Thousand types of sounds and thousands of types of forms, and so many types of smells, so many types of taste, so many types of touch. Soft and hard and cold and heat, any kind. So many types of touch also are there. And daily you interact with the world, and they enter also. But most of them go away, like that image in the mirror. But some of the objects, for them the mind works as a negative, and they stick to that. A permanent image is formed in our mind, and then the object goes away, definitely. But then mind now, since it has entered and it is in the form of that image on the negative kind, and therefore then mind starts dwelling upon. This is called Vishaya Dhyanam. This is called Vishaya Dhyanam. Interesting thing is Ishvara Dhyanam actually. But it is very, very difficult. When Vishaya Dhyanam we should not have, but that is very easy for us. So in Vishaya Dhyanam we are expert, and Ishvara Dhyanam we are all totally, like LKG etc. We don't know how to do even Ishvara Dhyanam. So and so even for Vishaya Dhyanam etc., Ishvara Dhyanam definitely you require to sit in a certain posture and everything. But Vishaya Dhyanam, you don't require any posture. All the time you revel in that thoughts. So definitely, and there are varieties of the Vishayas as I told you, but all the time we have a Vishaya Dhyana. So Bhagavan says the first thing that happens in a loose mind is this Vishaya Dhyana. That's the first step for falling down from the ladder and ultimately destroying the entire life. The very first step is this Vishaya Dhyana. And Vishaya means a sense objects. And as I told you, Vishaya word is basically from the root vish, vishinoti, badnati iti Vishaya. I think it's in fifth conjugation. And therefore, badnati. So they have the object. Those objects, well, definitely ultimately will lead to bondage, ultimately leads to destruction, sorrow, etc. Now, and according to Vedanta, at this level itself, person should basically, his discrimination, he should apply it and ask the question whether it is worthwhile dwelling upon the object or not, that particular object. Well, whether it is healthy to think of that object constantly or not, we have to definitely, whether it is healthy to fantasize. And if a person is intelligent and alert, well, he can nip in the bud itself. And because the first thought is very feeble, when you start thinking about some new object which has entered into your mind and form an image, and then still it is in your hand, because it's very feeble when you start, it's very easy to distract your mind from that thought, first thought. And if a person does not use this discrimination, then thought goes on, and well, then now the same feeble thought becomes a very powerful, like that they call it like a ripple becomes a huge wave. Same way, a feeble thought, well, becomes a powerful one. And because the person was not so alert, and so he allowed that fancy, he keeps on dwelling on that thought, and now it has become a very powerful thing. So that is the first step. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha. And this Puman word also is very important. Actually, I would like to share this very interesting thing with you. Well, of course, all this has been talked by the Acharyas. There is no contribution from me. Well, by the way, I would first convey to you. This Pumsaha is the sixth case. And of course, it has been formed from the root Pum. Pum means to purify. From that, the word Puman has been formed. And there is a particular pratyaya, of course, it's a Dumasun pratyaya is there, and therefore this is formed. Punati iti Puman. Basically this person, which we call as a Puman, he's a pure right now because of something. This person is pure. This body is pure. His nail is pure. His hand is pure. His blood is pure. His hair is pure. Everything is pure. Really, his teeth is pure right now. When they are in the body. So basically, there is a one verse which says, Vibhaktani kesha srugadyani yasmad aputani yadyoga kale shuchini tam atmanam ekam vishuddha svabhavam vayam manmahe pavanam pavananam. So you have a beautiful hair, let's say, very beautiful hair, and that's how definitely when they are on our head, etc., and we will, whatever the weight or etc., we will hold it and we move around with that. But the same hair, when in a barber shop, etc., well, it falls away from your body, then you don't like to put a leg on it. You don't like to put a leg on it. Even if you have to put the leg, well, definitely you will see that it is not a barefoot. Definitely you will wear some shoes, and so you don't want to touch it at all. And if suppose a hair comes in your lunch, that plate, etc., my God, person sometimes becomes so angry also, and he feels so much disgusting. Anyway, then definitely this is Kesha Srugadyani. And the other thing is, well, even the blood also is in the body, then we definitely, suppose our face looks a little, pinkish and a little reddish, and then we feel proud that so beautiful face I have. Everything people make sometime through some kind of a, I don't know what is it, but some kind of, they make their chins and everything red by applying something. And even that I think lips also they make red. So you want to appear red with all these things. And that's redness basically is ultimately, well, the person doesn't have a blood much, and therefore his face may be looking very pale, and therefore he has to apply. But some people have that face which has redness, etc. And then, but that one person feels proud. He feels good. But the same blood, when it comes out and falls anywhere, or it just comes out even and a drop falls nearby, then you don't want to just see it also. People, there are thousands and thousands of people, they cannot see their own blood. But when the blood is inside the body, well, they enjoy that. Then the beauty is of that, the face appears, etc. So that's how they say, sthana brashtaha na shobhante, dantaha, keshaha, nakhaha, naraha. These four things, when they fall out from their own respective places, then definitely they are not welcomed. In fact, they are the sources of disgust. What are they? Dantaha, when it is right now there, I may polish it also very well. And sometimes I show it also purposely, that how much they white and shining they are, etc. But when it falls out, you don't want to see that also. So sthana brashtaha, when it comes out of its respective place, you don't like. Keshaha, hair. Nakhaha, here you may do a nail polish when it is there, but once it comes out, you don't like. And naraha, person, when he loses a position, he was enjoying a position in a company, now he has lost the position, or he has retired, whatever. Now, no value. That's how it is. So, this is a Niti Shastra, of course. So, what I am saying is, Yadyoga Kale Shuchini. What is the thing? Same, the teeth is here, hair is here, and the blood is inside, and all these things, when they are there in their respective places, we like them. We don't consider them as a ashuchi, right? Impure. But when they come out and fall, they come out of the body, they get separated from the body, you don't like it. What is the reason? What is the reason? They say, Yadyoga Kale Shuchini. Aputani, Yasmad Aputani, Yadyoga Kale Shuchini. Yoga Kale, when they are united with this body, Shuchini, they are pure. Tam Atmanam Ekam Vishuddha Svabhavam Vayam Manmahe Pavanam Pavananam. Because here in this body, the Atma is there right now. Somebody says, Swamiji, no, it's not that. When they are on the body, we appreciate them as a pure, etc. When it comes out of the body, when they lose the contact with the body, we call them impure. But it's not true. In fact, at the death, when the death occurs, the entire body, along with the everything, hair and the teeth and all this, our blood or whatever it may be there, entire body is looked upon as a ashuchi, right? And the same way, basically, so it is not that because of the association of the body they are really looked like that, they appear like that. Actually, because of the Atma which is present there, when that consciousness which is present there, he was earlier a conscious being. Now he is no more called a conscious being, he is called a dead body. And therefore, once they lose, the body loses the consciousness. And the Atma just lives in form of a jiva also. If it lives, well, then no more. The entire body also is looked upon as a shuchi, and therefore It is not that they because of the association, all these things, hair and teeth and everything are called Shuchi, because of this association of the Atma. So Pavitranam Pavitram Yo Mangalanam Cha Mangalam. Because of that only, because of Atma only, the body has a Shuchi, etc. It is looked upon as a Mangalam. It is looked upon as a Shuchi. It is looked upon as a pure. And same way this Puman, means this person right now, because he is just Atma. And even if you call him as a Jiva, well, but Jiva is nothing but the Brahman, Paramatma, and therefore he is pure. But the same person who is in the state, who is having such a pure, he is pure by nature. This, because of this fall of, the ladder of fall, because his Antakaranam has got this Dhyanam, we are going to see all this, Kamaha, Krodha, etc. Because of the association with all these things, is such a pure person, and basically by nature which is pure, as though gets destroyed totally, becomes totally impure and get destroyed also. So Bhagavan has used the word Puman purposely, it seems. And the sixth case, of course, Puman word is not there, word Pumsaha is there. Pumsaha means is a sixth case, and the meaning will be for the person. That is what is being told here. So for the person, well, who constantly dwells upon the objects, then the ladder of fall starts. He starts becoming more and more impure because of association with the Kamaha, Krodha, etc. Anyway, this is just by the way. So the first step we have seen that mind dwells upon, because the image has been formed. Definitely a thought will be formed, and thought is always pertaining to the sense object, but thousands and thousands of thoughts are formed pertaining to the sense objects. All the time there will be a object of the thought will be there, but most of the thoughts, most of the objects live without creating any kind of a image in the mind. But some of the objects stick to the frame of thought because of a particular chemical is there. With the chemical is nothing but that rasaha, that emotional value for certain objects looked upon as a source of security, etc. And therefore, if that is there, then that object, sticks to that thought, sticks to the mind. And so he dwells upon it. Then what is second stage? Well, because of this such thing, one starts you dwelling upon, if you are not alert, and initially itself when you have started thinking, every time, it's not that we all the time we are using old objects and all that, and we look upon them as a source of security or happiness or something, source of, some kind of a comfort in our life. It's not so. We also think about new objects, and we get it also. We buy those objects. That's how in anybody's home you go, you will find new things in terms of objects you will find. That shows their interest. So old objects now, they no more give you that happiness and etc. No more promise they will fulfill, and so you replace them. So definitely you must have gone through this process. A new object has appeared in your mind, and now you start dwelling upon. And then from there, what will happen? Sangah jayate. So Vishaya dhyanat sangah jayate. Sangah means what? You develop a fancy of the object. It's a feeling. What kind of a feeling for that object if you start dwelling upon? Well, it's wonderful. It's attractive. It's promising. It's this kind of a thing. It is a source of joy, etc., etc. Which according to Vedanta, of course, is a misconception. And that's how we have word fancy, when you use this word fancy, that's sufficient. A fancy is this kind of thing. Well, it does not have that, what you look upon them, and they are not really speaking. So, world is basically any sense object is neither a source of joy nor a source of sorrow. World is a world basically. All objects are there. And definitely they are Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasagandha, but then some of them you look upon them as a source of sorrow, and some of them you look upon them as a source of joy. So we categorize basically world as a source of joy and sorrow, And that is why, when that is very, you will find here in American society, where the children who are really grown up here, they like playing the Western music, etc., and in front of parents sometime. And when the parents are basically pakka Carnatic music wala. I mean, they like that kind of a music, and this music for them is a noisy, and and they jump around, etc., and for them it's a source of ananda, and for the parents this Western music is a source of headache. So that shows that if one object itself becomes a source of totally opposite thing, that shows it is not a source of headache also, it is not a source of joy also. But that's how, depending upon one's own one's mind, that's how I am trained. So it all depends on how am I trained and how I look at it. But so it's a fancy basically. So sangaha means a fancy. Once you dwell upon an object, then you develop that this object is basically a source of either a sorrow, or you say this object is a source of a joy. But now we will pick up the thread of that, what's the source of a joy. So first mistake, of course, I commit is whenever I dwell upon something for a length of time, the mind has a tendency to appreciate it. Even it happens so, this is an old story of course, in earlier days when a television has come in India, when new, in those days, I think maybe in 80s, and then definitely every Sunday evening they used to cast a film, a Hindi film or something, and that whole program was sponsored by one particular company, a soap company. So selling all these detergents and soaps and everything. And and in their advertisement they used to play some song, and in which their name is there, etc. And often in the whole movie, maybe of 2 hours or something, in that every 15-20 minutes that advertisement comes, and an interval comes, and then the advertisement comes. And it will happen for every week, because every Sunday they used to cast that movie. And it happened so, even initially you hate them. Why? Because the movie was going on and suddenly got interrupted and that advertisement comes. So initially you start hating them, this advertisement and the song and everything. But later all the people really, they start liking that song. So without knowing myself, that I was hating, I start that advertisement song, I start singing. Because constantly I hear it every week, and that to 4 times, 5 times, 6 times in every week. And of course other times also they used to do, because of they were giving advertisement for other things, they were sponsoring some other programs. But so that advertisement song you start singing without your knowing, you did not know that once upon a time you were hating that song. Anyway, so what we want to convey is, this is a mind has got the capacity. So it's wonderful, it's appealing, this is a really good song, etc., etc. That attitude is called sangha, fancy. How it happened? Mind started dwelling upon. Of course, in that case, the advertisement has brought that particular song again and again to your mind, and so mind then started dwelling upon. That's called Vishaya Dhyanam. And then it led to this kind of a fancy that you start liking. Oh, it's appealing, etc., or it's wonderful, it is good, etc. So this thing is, so it happens so that you feel that, this particular object, this particular person, etc., has a place in your life. This will happen. This particular object and or a person, sometime it may happen so that you constantly dwell upon a person, then you start feeling that way for a person also. That's how they call fall in love and etc. That's real fall anyway. But then but basically this thing will happen. You feel that, with that object in your life, you imagine that way. If that object is there in my life, that person is there in my life, there is a fulfillment. there is a better place I will be in a better position. So basically I begin to look at my own position along with that object, and I begin to feel that, well, I will have a fulfillment if that object or person or anything comes to my life. This is Sangaha. This is called Sangaha. And then from Sangaha arises what? Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Now, immediately what will happen? If you see like that if you imagine with that, your life will have a fulfillment or will be in a better position with that object, person or anything, then you definitely want that object in your life. So, Kama. Basically, so it's worth having. You feel like that, it's worth having. So then if mind thinks that it's worth having, then still the dwelling is going on. So then you begin to say mentally, I want it, I want it. And that is how, and it will happen so that mind becomes like a stubborn child. A stubborn child, what it does, whatever the object it wants, you will have to give. The child will not be pacified by any other means. It wants that object. Same way our mind becomes also stubborn. That without that I cannot live, I want that object. Without that I cannot survive. Without that person I cannot survive. Without that person, without that situation, without that thing I cannot live. And this is the height of the fancy. Well, that Sangha is a fancy, but now it has converted into Kama, the desire of that particular object for which you were having a fancy, and this is the culmination of the fancy, which we call it as a Kama. And Kama means I am totally trapped and enslaved. I even forget, that Vedantic teaching, it happens to our people also, it is happening. That's how all this discussion is all pertaining to us only. The outside people, who are not going to even see the Bhagavad Gita, for them it is not, it is just for us, because we want to develop that third discipline called Manonigraha, or the thought discipline, or regulation of a thought. So for that the whole discussion is. So even I may be having a Vedantic teaching in my mind that I am full and complete, basically I'm totally independent. I don't need any other thing for security other than myself. I don't need any other object for happiness other than myself. All this, and therefore I don't require object or person in order to be full and complete. I have heard this teaching also, but still I forget everything, and I get totally trapped in this, and I conclude that, that person, that object, that thing should be there in my life. I want it. I cannot survive without that. This is called Kamaha. And Bhagavan says, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. A deep yearning, a deep desire is born. So, Vishaya Dhyanam, first step. Vishaya Sangaha, second step, fancy of the object. And then third is Vishaya Kama. A desire, a deep desire, desire or deep yearning for that object. So, three steps. But that is, these three steps are in the ladder, that ladder of fall. So the person is now coming down. Who is that person? Puman. Who is nothing but the Atma, who is full and complete, secure, and the full, and the nature is fullness. He is the happiness. In fact, he is the source of happiness and security. Such a person, now comes down. Started coming down. Then fourth, Kamat Krodaha Abhijayate. Kamat Krodaha. Problem is getting now more serious. So from Kama, desire, it takes two routes here. It can go either way. Two routes are possible. First, if desire, suppose, Kama, the desire, suppose, is fulfilled, then it picks up one route. And if the desire is not fulfilled, it picks up another route. So, Krishna is going to talk about the second route. First route we will talk. Bhagavan is not talking about. Suppose if Kama is fulfilled, what will happen? That Bhagavan doesn't talk. If Kama is not fulfilled, what will happen? That Bhagavan says. So if the desire is not fulfilled, what will happen? Because, definitely, the desire, when it is not fulfilled, definitely takes a bad shape. It comes into a bad form, and that is called anger. And we know this, that any desire, when we really, a object of desire, if we don't get, definitely we get an anger. It may happen that suppose you want to buy a certain thing. I mean, you want to buy, let's say, a baggage. If you want to buy, you want to go to India and you want to buy a good bag, I mean, which can carry up 20 kg, and you like, and you went to a supermarket, etc. while coming from the office, and then definitely you see and you like the color, you like the shape, and you like the everything in, but you forgot your credit card, etc., and you were not having enough money, and so you thought, okay, this Sunday, anyway, after 2 days it is coming, and therefore I will come with wife and we'll select that this bag, etc. We'll buy this bag. After 2 days, if you go, you won't find. So, and then definitely you say, okay, no problem. You will talk to the salesman. He said, okay, you tell him, well, you give me another piece, no problem. So he says, no, sorry, no, we have exhausted all these baggages. That's all. So, suppose, and then suppose the person is there in front of you, suppose, and the salesman won't tell. But suppose he tells that this gentleman, he came before 2 days and he bought this bag. Just you left the store and he came. And well, he also was interested. He liked the color, etc. and everything. And I mean, good brand, everything. And so he just bought it. And somehow you have no relation with them, but that person. But then you got angry with that person. So this is how it is. So desire is not fulfilled, and this is going to be there. This is a inevitable thing, that desire will have a label, unfulfilled desire. The list of the unfulfilled desire is a very, very big in our life, very big. So we call thwarted desire or this unfulfilled desire, and that unfulfilled desire gets converted into anger. So it is desire only. Anger is a desire. Krodha is nothing but a kama. That's how kama eshaha, krodha eshaha. Bhagavan did not say that there are two things, kama and krodha. Bhagavan has used singular. Kama eshaha, krodha eshaha. This is kama, this is krodha. Kama itself, Bhagavan calls it as a krodha in unfulfilled condition. So, Bhagavan says, kamat, from the obstructed desire, krodha abhijayate, anger is born. And whoever is going to obstruct, well, if depending upon the desire, if your desire, suppose you have a business, etc., and your source of income and etc., even sometimes source of reputation also, sometimes person earns a good name doing a good business and earning good money, etc., and therefore person has a good name, fame and money also in a business empire, and it may happen so that some competitor comes doing the same business and he is also now rising in the market, and then definitely you don't feel good, and well, it may happen so that he is rising at your cost, then definitely you want to liquidate the person, eliminate the person. That is what is happening in the world. Anyway, so you can understand your strong desire of having good name, fame and money which you acquired, and you want to retain that, and somebody becomes a threat for that, you want to eliminate the person. So that to that extent anger can go. Well, this is how the thing is. Anyway, so kamat krodha abhijayate. Okay, but that's the second route. Suppose kama is fulfilled, desire is fulfilled. Then what? That Bhagavan is not talking, but we can discuss about it because this is a chance to discuss. So, well, then definitely if kama is fulfilled, it goes to another route. What will happen? We know. We will be happy. Desire is fulfilled, we will be happy. But we look for the next higher stage. That's what happening. Any desire which is fulfilled, then that desire multiplies. Fulfilled desire leads, fulfilled desire leads to greed. And that is how gamblers, get sucked into the gambling. Somehow, there is some psychology. Somebody told me about this Las Vegas. People, you may wonder if the people can talk to Swami about this, but we listen, really speaking, because we also learn something. Not going for that thing, but what happens? They say initially when they enter into that the place where this gambling etc. going on, and they make the environment also very attractive, and initially you start playing that, I mean gambling etc., then you may win also. Initially it may happen, and so your desire is fulfilled of for the money, I mean you are earning money, and then definitely it leads to greed, and ultimately it happens so that people lose everything, whatever the dollars and something whatever were there in the whole pocket becomes empty. That is what their purpose is, that's what they say anyway. So why to talk about anyway, let's forget about this ordinary people. You imagine in Mahabharata, this Dharmaputra himself got victimized because of this gambling. One of the lessons taught by Mahabharata is gambling is one of the biggest weakness or the worst weakness which can destroy even a dharmic person. And so Dharmaputra get lost. I mean, he lost everything. He lost everything because of this weakness of a gambling. Dharmaputra, and well, that's a weakness. Well, he accepts his weakness. Of course, that being the Dharmaputra, Yudhishthira basically accepts his weakness. He accepted, but he could not come out of this weakness. So anyway, we have to learn this. Kama can lead to lobha. Fulfilled kama converts itself into lobha. Unfulfilled kama converts into krodha. So Bhagavan does not talk about it, but we can know this. So 4 stages we have completed: Vishaya Dhyanam, Vishaya Sangaha, Vishaya Dhyanam. So dwelling upon the sense object, particular sense object, not all, which has got stuck in my mind because of that particular rasa. Vishaya Sangaha, definitely then got a fancy for that object, means this wonderful, etc., etc. And imagining its position in my life, yourself and that object, yourself and that person, and you feel, yeah, I will be in a better position if that person or that thing will be there in my life, etc., etc. And then Vishaya Kama, well, then desire for that, gaining that person, that for object etc. will be arising, and if that is not fulfilled, Krodha also arises. So we should not say Vishaya Krodha. Vishaya Dhyanam is alright, Vishaya Sangaha is alright, Vishaya Kama also is alright. Vishaya Krodha we cannot say, because that's not fair. Vishaya, because in absence of the Vishaya, which desire Vishaya, you haven't got it, and therefore you have, that has led to this Krodha, and therefore we should not say Vishaya Krodha. Anyway, what happens later, that we have to see. We'll just read it and then we'll stop, because Pradosha Puja is there, and then we'll discuss tomorrow. But we'll first read it, and I will give you translation. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha, buddhinashat pranashyati. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. Krodhat, from anger, 5th case. From anger arises what? Sammohaha, delusion. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. All these next steps, 4 steps we have seen. So 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th, like that. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. From delusion results what? Smriti vibhramaha. Smriti vibhramaha is loss of memory. Smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha. From the loss of memory, buddhinasha, loss of discrimination arises, and buddhinashat pranashyati. Well, then, once you lose the discrimination permanently, you are no more a human being, definitely, and therefore, as if the person is perished. That's how it is. We'll see those steps, etc. tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.